My mom left my 10-year-old son alone in the woods for 4 hours, came back to the cabin without him, and shrugged it off like it was no big deal. My sister laughed, saying he'd learn sometime. What would you do if your family treated your kid like he were disposable? My mom took my son on a nature walk during our family weekend. Hours passed. She came back alone. He's 10. He'll find his way, she said. My sister laughed. He's got to learn sometime. I found him crying beside a trail marker 2 miles away. I carried him home. Then I made a call. Their weekend plans got cancelled. So did their bills. Not only did she come back without my son, but she also walked into the cabin as if she'd forgotten something, dropping her sunglasses on the counter, sliding off her boots, and casually asking if lunch was ready. I wondered where Nathan was. She blinked once. Oh, he's still out there. He wanted to walk the trail back on his own. My wife, Jenna, froze mid-stir at the stove. I looked out the window, then at my watch. It had been almost 4 hours. 4 hours? I asked. You left him out there 4 hours ago? Mom shrugged. He's 10. He'll find his way. My sister snorted from the couch, like it was some inside joke. Come on, Mike, we used to get lost in those woods all the time. He's got to learn sometime. I didn't respond, just turned around and grabbed my coat. The forest behind the cabin used to feel like home. I knew every bend, every log, every mossy rock. But that day, it felt like a maze, too quiet, too cold. The sky was gray, and the light was slipping fast. I called his name again and again, walked, then ran, then stopped to listen for anything. At one point, I started tearing through the trees, brushing past branches, not caring that they were cutting my face. The worst thoughts wouldn't leave my head. He could have fallen. He could have been bitten. He could have wandered too far and ended up miles from here. When I finally found him, he was sitting on the ground near a faded trail marker, his back against a tree, his face pale, eyes wide, like he'd been staring into the dark for too long. He didn't say a word when he saw me, just stood up slowly and walked into my arms. I carried him back. When we got to the clearing, I saw Jenna already outside, pacing. When she saw us, she didn't speak. She just grabbed Nathan from my arms and held him like he was the only real thing left in the world. Inside, my mom was finishing a crossword puzzle. My dad was still planted on the couch, watching some game. My sister was on FaceTime with a friend, laughing like it was any other Saturday. Not one of them asked where he'd been or if he was okay. That night, Nathan refused to sleep alone. Jenna tucked him between us, and we stayed like that, all three of us silent, listening to the creaks of the cabin, the rustle of leaves outside. He didn't cry, but he didn't sleep either. Neither did we. The next morning, we took Nathan to school. I told him we'd pick him up early, maybe take him for ice cream. He nodded, but his eyes were still glassy, still shaken. Then we drove to my parents' house, 40 minutes away. Jenna didn't say a word the whole ride, just stared straight ahead, clutching her travel mug so tightly the plastic creaked. She didn't knock when we got there, just walked right in, still wearing her coat. My mom was at the table, reading something on her iPad. Jenna stepped up, took her coffee, and dumped it across my mom's face and down her blouse, cold, milky, all of it. My mom gasped but didn't scream. She just blinked, like she wasn't surprised, like she thought she deserved worse. You left our son alone in the woods, Jenna said, and you thought we'd just let that go? My dad came in from the garage, holding a wrench like he was about to fix something. I looked at both of them. You're not going to Miami. I canceled your flights. And the bills I've been paying to help with the mortgage? It stops today. They didn't shout. They didn't plead. They just looked at me like I'd betrayed them, like I was ungrateful. Then, the absurd part, my dad turned to my mom and said, "See, this is what happens when you give kids too much." Jenna looked at me and said one word, "Enough." It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about everything. They didn't follow us out of the house. Not a word, not even a weak apology. They just stood there in the kitchen, like we'd dropped off groceries instead of dropping a bomb. Jenna and I got in the car. Before I pulled out of the driveway, she said it again. They don't get to live there anymore. She was staring straight ahead, fists clenched in her lap. I didn't answer because there wasn't anything to argue about. We both knew it was overdue. The apartment wasn't supposed to be theirs. It was ours, an investment we bought 2 years into our marriage after we both got raises and thought, hey, why not put it into property? It needed work, but the location was good, and we figured it would pay off. Then came the phone call, my parents claiming they needed a place to stay for a few months while they redid their kitchen and bathrooms. That was 14 months ago. They never paid rent, never offered, kept pushing back the timeline with vague excuses, permits, bad contractors, weather delays. But we saw the house once. Nothing was being done. It was just empty. We pulled up to the apartment. Jenna looked at it like she was seeing it for the first time. Feels like we handed them our savings on a platter, she said. Now they've lost the right to everything. I didn't knock, just used my key and walked in. It smelled like old takeout. The entryway was cluttered with boxes that had been in transition for over a year. Paint cans were stacked in the hallway, untouched. Same hole in the drywall near the stairs from the time my dad said he tripped and his elbow went through it, still not patched. They were already there. My mom was on the couch, scrolling her phone like nothing had happened, her blouse still stained with cold coffee. My dad was in the kitchen, trying to wipe down a pan like it made him useful. I stood in the middle of the living room. Jenna crossed her arms. "You're moving out," I said. My dad looked up first. "What are you talking about? You've got 5 days. I'm giving you until Friday." My mom laughed, actually laughed. "You're kicking us out over one little parenting disagreement?" Jenna stepped forward. "Parenting disagreement? You left our son in the woods for 4 hours and came back without him. You thought it was funny. You let him cry alone, and if he hadn't been found, God knows what could have happened." Dad tried to interrupt with something about back in our day, and I cut him off. "No more speeches. No more delays. You've been living here rent-free for over a year. I've paid for your utilities, covered your phone plan, and even bailed you out of a credit card issue without telling Jenna. And you treat our son like some stray dog who'll find his way home. Update." The tension snapped. Mom stood up. "This is how you repay us after everything we've done for you? What exactly have you done for me?" I asked. That shut her up. Then my sister tried to FaceTime in, probably Mom had texted her. Jenna picked up the phone, looked into the camera, and said, "Don't. You're not helping." You laughed too. Then she hung up. "You're not entitled to this place," I said. "We bought this. We pay for it. You were guests." That ended the moment you made my kid feel disposable. Mom and Dad looked stunned for a second, like they hadn't expected it to go this far. Then the begging started, the guilt tripping. "Where will we go? We don't have a backup plan. You can't just throw us out. You should have thought about that before leaving our 10-year-old alone in the forest," Jenna said. "They tried to say the family would turn on us, but that was the funny part. I'd already talked to everyone. My cousin Rob said I should have kicked them out a year ago. Teresa called what they did pure psychopathy. Even my usually neutral younger brother said, 'Good. It's about time.'" Jenna looked at me and whispered, "You know what would teach them something? Make them move out and then hit them where it hurts, not emotionally, financially." I already had a plan, one they wouldn't see coming, and I was going to enjoy watching it unfold. They moved out fast, faster than I expected, honestly. 4 days after I told them they were done, they packed up their crap and left the apartment. No apology, no confrontation, no goodbye. They just vanished, leaving behind a broken lamp, 2 mismatched forks, and a trail of dust and unfinished excuses. Jenna and I stood in the entryway once it was empty. She looked around like she didn't recognize the place anymore. "They took up so much space," she said, "and they didn't even pay for the air." I wanted to feel relief, but I didn't, because none of it felt like enough. They walked out of our lives without looking back, like they hadn't done a damn thing wrong. They left our 10-year-old son in the woods like it was some kind of life lesson, like they were doing him a favor. They came back to the cabin without him, made jokes, and called us sensitive when we lost it. Then they acted like we were overreacting when we told them they were cut off. They hadn't even called to ask how Nathan was doing. Not once. So I started thinking about ways to make it stick, ways to make sure they remembered, not just now, every month, a reminder, something that couldn't be ignored or swept under the rug like everything else they'd done. That's when I remembered the old credit account. Back in college, when I needed a cosigner, Mom stepped in. When I wanted to close it 5 years ago, she said, "No, just leave it open in case of an emergency." Well, I decided this counted. I opened a loan, $6,000 in her name. I didn't even need the money, it went straight into a separate account I don't use. But it was never about the cash. It was about the notice, the interest, the monthly statements she'd get in the mail. Every single time, a reminder that actions have consequences. She called about 2 weeks later. "What the hell is this?" she snapped. "You took out a loan in my name?" "I did," I said. "You shouldn't have left the account open. That's identity theft." "No, it's not. You permitted me. It's all under the same account you signed for." She paused. I could hear her breathing, like she was deciding whether to scream or sob. "You're doing this out of spite." "No," I said. "I'm doing this because you walked away from a 10-year-old boy in the middle of nowhere and came back smiling like you'd done something noble." She hung up. The next day, Dad called, his voice shaking with that forced rage he always used when he had no control. "You went too far. You think this is over? We'll fix this. We'll come after you," I laughed. "You want to go down that road? Because I kept copies of the taxes you filed with my social security number 3 years ago. You want the IRS to take a look? Or should I remind Mom about the unemployment benefits she claimed while working part-time under the table?" He was quiet for a long time, then said, "You wouldn't. Try me." He hung up, too. That was the last call we got. Jenna backed me on all of it, every move, every word. She said, "This isn't revenge. This is setting a boundary they can't cross anymore." And she was right. It wasn't about getting even. It was about finally making them feel something, even if it was just discomfort. I sat down with Nathan that weekend, told him they wouldn't be coming around anymore. He looked up from his Lego set and said, "Good. That was all, just one word. But I saw the way his shoulders relaxed after he said it, like he didn't have to be on guard anymore. For the first time since that awful day at the cabin, I felt like we were okay. They still haven't apologized. They haven't reached out to Nathan, haven't admitted anything. They just disappeared. But I know they're feeling it. And I'm not finished yet. After the loan, everything went quiet, the kind of quiet that doesn't mean peace, it means something is brewing. No calls, no texts, nothing. They disappeared off the radar. Not a word about the money, not a word about Nathan, not a single attempt to reach out. It was like they'd folded into themselves, trying to figure out if the storm was over or if another one was coming. It wasn't over. I couldn't stop thinking about their house, their real house, the one they'd abandoned for the better part of a year. They always said they were working on it, but every time we brought it up, it was just more talk. Permits, insulation, plumbing, everything was always almost done. So one morning, after dropping Nathan at school, I drove by. What I saw was exactly what I expected and still worse than I remembered. The lawn was overgrown, the siding cracked, and newspapers were piled by the door like no one had lived there in months. A shutter had fallen halfway off the front window, flapping in the breeze like the house was trying to wave goodbye. I pulled around back, trash bags near the garage, a tarp flapping where the roof should have been repaired. Whatever story they'd been spinning, it was a lie. That house wasn't under construction, it was abandoned. And they thought they could just guilt their way back into my apartment again when things got bad enough. So I made a call, code enforcement. Told them there were health hazards, unchecked mold, uncut grass, structural issues. I gave them everything they needed. I didn't exaggerate, I just described it honestly, which was more than enough. Within a week, they were hit with 3 separate citations. A notice went on the front door. A fine followed, and another, and another. Then they showed up. Not together, that would have made sense. No, Mom showed up alone at my office, without calling. She looked tired, not like she hadn't slept, but like she hadn't been right for months. Her clothes were clean, but her eyes were wild, flicking around the lobby like someone was watching her. "You reported us," she said. I didn't say anything. "There are inspectors. They're saying we could lose the house. We need help, Michael." She was trying to use that old voice again, the one she used when I was 12, and she wanted me to feel bad for being angry. I didn't feel anything. Final update. "You left my son in the woods," I said. "You walked back to the cabin without him and made a joke about it. You still haven't said sorry." I didn't think it was a big deal. There it was, that sentence, that single sentence, summed up everything. They didn't think it was a big deal. "I'm done helping you," I said. "Done covering for you, done fixing things you break. I'm your mother. No, you're just someone who had a kid, and now he has his own." I handed her the envelope I'd been keeping ready in my desk. Inside, a copy of the loan in her name, the signed documents she'd once begged me not to close, the code enforcement reports, and 2 more pages, one outlining the tax fraud I knew they'd committed using my SSN, the other a report Jenna had quietly drafted about a past accidental insurance claim they filed using forged receipts. She found the originals in their old cabinet when we helped them move last year. "If you or Dad come near my son again, I will press send. The IRS, your bank, and the state will get a copy." Her hands trembled when she took the envelope. She didn't cry, not this time. She just left. That night, Jenna and I sat on the porch of the now empty apartment. Nathan was asleep. It was just us, 2 lawn chairs, and a quiet we hadn't heard in months. She handed me a beer and said, "They're not going to stop hating us." "I don't care," I said. "They're not supposed to love us more than they love control." She nodded, then leaned back. "They're going to find a way to crawl back." I looked at her. Let them try. Because if they did, I'd be ready, and they knew it now. Weeks passed. Nathan stopped asking about them, stopped mentioning them at all, not even in passing. It was like his brain had filed them away under something irrelevant, something dead. Jenna and I finally finished clearing out the apartment. We rented it within a week. A couple with a newborn moved in. They were polite, paid the first 3 months up front, and sent us a thank you card with a photo of their baby. I looked at it longer than I expected to. The apartment felt clean again, like it had never been touched by my parents. But then, as always, silence didn't mean peace. My sister texted first. No apology, no check-in, just, "Heard what you did to Mom and Dad. You've lost your mind." I didn't answer. Then the email started. A few extended family members, the kind we hadn't seen since our wedding, suddenly had opinions. Family should forgive. They're old. What if something happens, and you never make amends? I read every one, then deleted all of them. I didn't need validation. I had my wife, my son, and the facts. And I had one final move. I called their bank, not to ruin them, just to let them know the loan was now marked for non-payment. Not default yet, not yet, but flagged. It was a warning to the bank. It was also a warning to them. I knew exactly when they got the notice because Jenna and I were at home when Mom called. I didn't answer, but she left a voicemail. "Mike, we don't know what to do. We're getting letters from the bank. I don't understand how you could do this. You've cut us out of everything. Jenna listened to it twice, then deleted it. You did exactly what you were supposed to do, she said. You protected us. And for the first time in a long time, I believed her completely. That weekend, I took Nathan hiking, not far, just a short trail in a state park with clear markers and benches every half mile. He was cautious at first, stayed close, but then he started running ahead, just a little, then looking back to make sure I was still there. I always was. He reached the top of a small hill and looked out over the trees. Dad, he said, I don't want to see them again. You don't have to. He nodded and went back to climbing a rock, no hesitation this time. I stood there and watched him. That's when I knew the war was over, not because I beat them, but because I stopped needing to. Next time they try to crawl back, I won't slam the door. I'll just keep it shut and locked forever. It's strange how something so loud can end so quietly. After everything, the apartment, the loan, the calls, the threats, it all went silent for weeks. Then a letter arrived, certified mail, not from them but from a law firm I didn't recognize. I opened it at the kitchen table with Jenna beside me and Nathan in the other room, working on his robot kit. It was a bankruptcy notice. My parents had filed full Chapter 7. The document was brutally honest. They were broke, credit cards maxed, unpaid fines from the house, a foreclosure in motion, and yes, the $6,000 loan was right there in the paperwork, listed under liabilities in my mother's name. They had nothing left, not the house, not the apartment, not a clean slate to run to. Nothing. Jenna didn't say much. She didn't gloat, didn't smile, just looked at me and said, "That's what it costs." I didn't respond. What do you say when you finally win the war but realize the other side burned their land? We didn't tell Nathan. He never asked. He stopped talking about them altogether. We didn't erase them from his memory, he just left them behind on his own, like old furniture. One day it's in your life, and then it's not, and you realize you never needed it in the first place. Then came the school project, a family tree. He brought it home and showed it to Jenna while I was folding laundry. I glanced at it and noticed something right away, 2 empty branches, no names where my parents should have been, just blank space. Jenna asked gently if he forgot anyone. He shook his head and said, "They're not part of my tree." I don't want to lie. She looked at me, and I knew we were thinking the same thing. He wasn't hurt, he wasn't confused, he just made peace with their absence quicker and cleaner than either of us ever could have expected. That summer, things changed. Jenna and I moved, sold the apartment, packed up the house, and bought a place just outside town, quiet, old trees, no traffic. Nathan had a backyard with a tire swing and the kind of neighbors who wave and mean it. He made friends in a week. We settled in, but not in the way most people think. Jenna met someone. It wasn't dramatic, and it wasn't secret. She ran into him at a bookstore, of all places, someone from her college days, someone decent. They started with coffee, then it became something more. And to her credit, she came to me before it ever crossed the line. We talked for hours, not angry, not broken, just honest. We'd been through hell together, and sometimes surviving something that big changes the shape of things. What we had wasn't romantic anymore. It was loyalty, deep respect, but not love, not the kind that moves forward. So we split quietly, peacefully. She moved just a few blocks away. Nathan still went back and forth like it was the most normal thing in the world. And Jenna's new partner treated Nathan with the kind of kindness I wish my father had shown me. I had no bitterness about it, just a strange sort of gratitude that life could take a turn and still land somewhere good. And I was good too. I focused on my work, started a small home business, and found a rhythm. Peace has a different sound when it finally arrives. It's not music, it's just the absence of shouting. Then one morning, I got a text from my sister. It just said, "They lost the house. They're living in a motel. I moved out. Haven't talked to them in weeks." You were right. That was it, the last piece. I stared at the message for a while, then put the phone down. Did I feel vindicated? Not really, just done. The war was over, and they had nothing left to burn, no more games, no more manipulation, just the cold walls of consequence. Jenna was thriving. Nathan was safe, happy, and growing like a weed. And me? I was finally living a life that didn't require forgiveness or explanations. I'd cut them out, not in anger, in survival. And for once, I didn't feel guilty for choosing peace. They were gone, not dead, not forgotten, just gone, exactly where they put themselves. And we were still here, living, laughing, moving on. The story didn't end with revenge. It ended with us choosing not to look back.